All right, welcome back, everybody. I have a great guest today, Mr. Jamie Volk. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on. Um, so, for those people that don't know, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you do and just give us a little rundown?
Awesome. My name's Jamie Volk, and I work for the City Fire Department. And I got a wife and two kids and a granddaughter at home. So,
How long have you been with the fire department?
I've been with the fire department going on 20 years. So,
20.
been there a while. Yeah.
Wow. So you've pretty much done it all. And
Pretty close.
Pretty close to it.
Yeah. There's a lot more aspects to the fire department than people actually think. So many different levels that you can get to.
Well,
the fire department.
What got you started into it?
Oh, it's that's a good story. I was laid off from a job. I was working at a factory, got laid off. Had a buddy of mine call me up and say, "Hey, I'm running security out at the fair. I know you're off work. You need a little extra money, and I can put you to work." And I said, "Yep." Got out there working, and some of the guys I work with were off-duty police officers. They have the fair fire department. That's a combination of career guys and volunteers that come in and work the fair throughout the year. And one of the guys I met there was a firefighter. He retired with like 40 plus years of service. I got to be good friends with him. And then my buddy that hired me, he was a firefighter as well. We got to talking one night, and he's like, "You know what? You'd make a good cop or a good fireman." And for the next 10 days, he was like, "Hey, you really need to come. We've got a test coming up. I really want you to come test with us." So I said, "All right, I'll give it a try." I said, "Worst I can do is not get a job, or I'd like to make the list." They carry a list for a year, a higher list.
Oh, okay.
So after you take the physical test and pass that and pass the written test, we have a list that we keep for a year. So if we have somebody leave within that year, we can call somebody off that list. And a lot of times those guys get hired pretty quick. They're
basically still qualified.
Yeah, they still qualify for that.
How physically, on the physical aspect of that hiring process or the qualifying of it, how demanding is that?
The demand for the hiring of that, you have to be in pretty good shape. You can't just get off the couch and go, "Oh, hey, I want to be a firefighter today and take the test." No, it's not that. It's one of those tests. You wear part of the gear, so you have to wear the coat, the helmet, the gloves, and an air pack, which you're carrying about 50 pounds.
I believe it. Oh, yeah.
So, and then like the first part of the test, you have to climb the 75-foot aerial ladder and go up, touch the top rung, and climb back down. You have to do that within 5 minutes.
Now, how hot does it get in that suit?
Man, it's your average fire that we have in a small house, room and contents.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be anywhere from 800 to 1,500 degrees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's just in that
That's just in that room.
That's not including everything on you.
Right.
Everything like
right.
that.
So no matter what time of year it is, we can be subject to, anywhere of 800 plus degrees in a house fire. So our gear, depending on the type of gear and then when it was made, it's rated for, now don't quote me on this, but roughly like 1,000 degrees for 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
So it's rated pretty high. It's got 3 different layers. It's got a steam layer that protects us. It has a we call it a thermal layer. It protects us from the heat, and then the outer layer protects us from the actual flame of the fire.
Yeah, and I'm sure just preemptively you're always staying hydrated throughout the day.
Throughout the day, and most firefighters, we drink on a light day. We'll probably drink a gallon of water.
Oh, I believe that.
On a light day. Now, if we've had a good structure fire, you've probably drank a gallon just on the fire scene. That when you can get a break, you go get a drink of water.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go back to work.
I got a lot of random questions.
Well, let's go, man.
I love digging into this stuff. One of them would be, so in Sedalia,
right?
Let's say in an average month, what do you think how many fires do you think are maybe here?
I can tell you for about the year.
Okay, yeah, no, do that. That's
Calls average out about 12 a day.
Really?
Now we run medical calls, we run car wrecks, and we run fires. So for about a year, we run about 2,500 calls a year for 2 stations.
2 stations. So Sedalia has 2 itself.
2 fire stations. Yep. They're in the process of talking about adding a 3rd station. So
yeah, we've been growing.
Oh yeah, we're growing good. We could actually have 4 stations the size of this town, which would be great. So and that's the thing. It's people don't realize. Yes, Sedalia's population really hasn't grown, but the city limits are slowly starting to expand some. And that's a process. That's a whole nother.
Well, you have to think, in my mind, even when you're talking about the expansion, you might not gain a lot of people, but you have to have a response time.
Correct.
So on your response time, how do you all take that into account? Do you do drills to get across town, or how does that work?
No, it's our response time is all based off of the insurance agency.
Okay.
So, like, we're supposed to have a 1.5 mile response time per station.
Okay.
And you have to be there within, I'm thinking 3 to 5 minutes is a good response time. So I tell people, most generally, the way the 2 stations are set, and that's why fire stations are put in areas that they're put, because their call area has to be within a certain amount of time. Now, along with that, the firefighters have to be on the truck within a minute. So it doesn't matter the time of day. It could be 3 o'clock in the morning. That alarm goes off. You got to be in your gear and on that truck within a minute. Straight from a dead sleep, rolling out the door in 60 seconds.
Wow.
So that's what we strive for. That's in a perfect world, we can get out faster. Obviously, it's not a perfect world, but we strive to be out the door as fast as we possibly can.
Yeah, because I do know you guys do long shifts at times, and so you just always have somebody ready to go, ready to receive the call, and just head out.
Yeah. The fire department's never closed. We're open 24 hours a day, so we've got guys on duty. We run shift work, so we run 24 hours on, 48 hours off.
I'm going to steal this pen because I want to make sure that the questions I'm asking, I don't want to go back.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
And I want to take my notes as I go here.
That's great.
This is a goofy question, but I think people want to know. I know back in the day, the old 1800 fire trucks, they're big old barrel on the back of the truck, and they carried water. Do the fire trucks today actually carry water?
Oh, yeah. We always carry water. And the thing people need to understand, there's different types of fire truck. There's brush truck, which looks like a regular pickup. And then we have what's called a squad, looks like a regular pickup with a service box on the back. What we run here in Sedalia are engines, and then quints and ladder trucks. Big cities have what they call a tiller engine.
Okay.
Now the tiller is the one looks like a tractor trailer, and the guy's sitting in the back driving the trailer, and then you got the guy in the front in the cab driving the cab. That's a tiller type truck. What you're going to see here in Sedalia is an engine or a quint. Now, a quint is different from a ladder truck. A ladder truck doesn't pump fire. All they do is ladders, search and rescue.
Gotcha.
That's primarily what they do. Now, an engine is a truck that doesn't have the big aerial ladder on it. It's got other ground ladders, but you won't see the big aerial on it, and that's the truck that's going to pump the fire. So we run 2 engines, and we run it's a quint, but we use it more for like a ladder truck. We very seldom pump off of it, but it has the capabilities of pumping. Now, the engines have 750 gallons of water in them. 750 gallons.
How quick does that get emptied?
You have, we run 200 foot of 1 3/4 hose hand line. You can pump 1 hand line in 6 minutes and run it dry.
6 minutes.
6 minutes.
That's why you got to have the hydrant. Yeah.
That's why you see a hydrant on every other block.
Wow.
Every other corner. Yeah.
And you have the extensions for all those with the truck.
Yeah. I mean, you can pump a truck. I think it's 9 outlets on some of the trucks. So you got 9 different hoses that you can pump at one time off of that truck as long as you got enough water.
I'm learning so much.
Oh yeah.
Now, and I'm going to be all over the place. I just hope you know.
Oh, you're good. Let's roll.
So we talk about a ladder truck.
Right.
Were you scared of heights?
I'm 50 years old and I'm still scared of heights.
Are you still scared of heights?
Yeah.
So
I mean, when I was younger, heights really didn't bother me too much. I didn't have kids, didn't have a wife, I'd go bungee jump, I'd, do a sky swing.
Uh-huh.
The older I get, this seems like the less I like heights.
Well, that's fine. I've never had a fear of heights myself. I was just wondering, because it's like that. When I was, one of the funny stories that I always think about is like, I don't think people realize how scared of heights they are until they're up there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And when we were learning how to jump out of planes, we had to do a zip line transaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you have a fake plane that you jump out of, and it's like anywhere from 30, 45, maybe even 60 feet, depending on how they want to do it. And I just remember there might have been a guy 2 or 3 in front of me, and you got to go out that door, and he just stood there, and he just didn't want to go. And usually the cadre, they want to help you the first time at least,
Right.
And that dude was like a cat trying to stay out of water, just hands up, would not go out the door. And then he just realized it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
So I assume during the training process, do they lift them in the ladder, give them kind of a see if they're scared? Or
That's a great question, because that's one of the things that you have to pass on the entry-level test.
It is.
Yeah. The first thing they do, we take the 75-foot straight sticks, what we call it. It's a 75-foot ladder truck. Mm-hmm. Now, you got to realize that ladder itself is not 75 feet. The truck itself plays a part. So truck 1 is you're already, when you get up to the platform, you're already 10 feet off the ground.
Yep.
And then you put that stick up at a 70-degree angle. It doesn't go straight up. It's just 70-degree angle. You get to that last rung, you're 75 feet off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in years past, that's when you find out if somebody's scared of heights. Now, climb it. That's what I said. You got to climb up it, touch the top rung, and then come down. You got to do that in less than 5 minutes. Most people do it in about 2.5 minutes, but you get a guy that's terrified, 5 minutes isn't enough time. So it's pretty tough. Now with the other ladder, it's 101 feet. You're adding another 26 feet to it, and it's got a bucket on the end of it. We aren't making people qualify to climb in it because we can put the bucket on the ground.
Yeah.
But you still have to know that there's that chance you may have to climb down that 101 feet just to get on the ground because something broke. So, yes, I'm scared of heights, but I rely on my equipment and my training to do my job, so that you learn how to put those emotions aside when you get into a situation.
And I was going to say, I think a lot of times you become robotic. If you were trained properly,
something like that.
You kind of just you go right into it, like you said, getting in the truck and just going. It's like you know where your stuff's at. You got to get it on. You got to go. Don't think, just do.
Right.
That old saying.
That's one of those things. I thought, okay, I'll go in the fire service. I'll go put fires out. I'll help people get out of cars, and then I won't do another thing. Man, for almost 20 years now, I've been going to school a lot more than I thought I was ever going to. We have continuing education just like everybody else does. At any kind of job you have to keep a certification for.
Of course. Yeah.
But through the week we're training first thing in the morning usually, and it's usually book training. If we don't have any book training that day, we'll go through what we call PT training, and we'll get the equipment out, we'll get the hoses out, we'll get the axes out. So that's why you see behind the fire station there on 16th Street, you see those different little structures and the tall tower. In the tall tower, we have a confidence course. Above that, on the 3rd floor, we have search and rescue room. And then on the back side, on the north side of that tower, we have balconies where you can rappel off of. Now, that's a different certification. That's another certification on top of ones that you already have.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing. If you've never, did you guys make your own harness when you rappel, or is it already pre-harnessed?
When you go through high angle school, high angle rescue school, you have to learn all those. You have to learn how to tie ropes. You have to learn how to make your own harness if you don't have one. You have to learn all that stuff.
See, that's in air assault school. That's what we had to do.
Yeah,
you had I think it was a 1/2 inch nylon,
Right.
And yeah, you have to make your own harness. And the day you actually come out of the helicopter, rappel out of the helicopter, you're using a harness you made. Now they checked it, but it's like you said, that's a big confidence thing to make sure that you're diverse in it.
And that's the thing, man, with us. You come in, you get your Fire 1 and 2 certification, get your EMT certification. You don't stop there. I mean, you can get driver certifications, you can get, technical rescue certifications, you can get your hazmat certification, you can get your officer. I mean, there's so many certifications out there that you can add to
everybody
your
on
diversity.
On your fire truck, on the EMT side of that. So I mean, it's good to know, but it's like, so are they diverse in CPR and medical attention?
Just as a first responder, you have CPR and blood control. Now, EMT-B is the first step of an EMT. There's three different levels. State of Missouri recognizes, I think, or no, I don't know how many levels, to be honest with you, but there's like EMT-B, which is EMT basic, then they have EMT intermediate, they have EMT paramedic. I think those are the three major certifications. So state of Missouri, you're either an EMT-B or an EMT paramedic. The difference between those two, a paramedic pushes drugs through protocols. They're similar to an emergency room nurse. But emergency room nurse has to turn and ask the doctor what to do, to where a paramedic, they have protocols on, okay, if this person is doing this, I can give this medicine. If this person is doing this, I give this medicine. So all of their guides are written down in SOGs to where, an emergency room nurse, and I'm not cutting emergency room nurses. Those girls, those people are phenomenal people. But there's a lot of stuff we do in the field that they don't do.
Well, yeah, and that's part of this. This is one of the reasons I think it's great that we're getting to have this interview. I think when we look at the majors, whether it be police officers or EMTs, like the ambulances and stuff, I feel like a lot of people, when they see a fire truck, they don't understand that, what you all are bringing to the table.
Yeah.
Not just in the fact of, put out the fire. It's like, it's pure safety too. You're there to respond. And
and another thing, we've been running medical calls since 2010.
Wow.
So for 13 years, people were like, they still don't realize that, why did the fire truck show up when I called an ambulance? Well, we're certified EMTs. We don't transport, but we can do the same thing those guys on the ambulance can do.
That's great.
And sometimes we get to the house faster than what the ambulance does. So we can do all that pre-care and get them taken care of before the ambulance shows up, and we'll be prepared. So all we do is transfer care, and the ambulance, sometimes all they have to do is load them up and take them to the hospital.
Well, I really hope people take note of that and really find that if they haven't found an appreciation for it in general. Because now on up-to-date training as well, one cool thing, now I might be out of my lane, new technology in putting out the fires. So I know I follow a lot of cool stuff on Instagram, engineering. I've seen the water bombs or the gas bombs.
Yeah.
Have you guys got to use those? Where you just throw them in a dumpster and it expands, and I don't know what it is. But
it is a dry powder chemical.
Yeah.
So, same stuff that's in a fire extinguisher.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's just an explosive, kind of like a grenade.
Basically, it's kind of like a grenade. It is a very old technology. Okay. And I've learned a lot of this. I'm not a big history guy, but I love learning stuff of, the fire department and of Sedalia.
Yeah.
So you said it called it a grenade. Back in the early 1900s, they made what was called a fire grenade, and it had a liquid chemical in there that takes all the oxygen out of the air. So if you had a room on fire, you'd throw this grenade in there because it was in a glass globe, and you would throw it in that room. It would break, and you didn't have any time to get out of that room. If you were in there, it would extinguish the fire because it would take all the oxygen out of the air.
But you can't breathe either. So that's, again, with the mask, that makes a lot of sense.
Right. So
wow, that's neat.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good way to, I see, because you think smoke, you don't think, oh, no, they're taking out an ingredient.
Right.
Got
So
it.
there's that fire triangle. You got to have the oxygen, you got to have the heat, and you got to have the chemical reaction. You take one of those three out,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm sorry, the fuel. So you take one of those three out, the fire goes out.
What what do you think the number one cause of fires, just in general, maybe?
Oh, there's a lot of factors there. The number one cause is probably human error.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
fair.
mean, we get a lot of calls from cooking fires. There is a ton of cooking fires. Candles, incense.
Yeah, I'm guilty. yeah.
It's just there's just so many different things that can cause a fire.
Well, I'll tell you. So, when I was a sophomore in high school, I actually went through my own house fire.
Yeah,
it's
a pretty scary thing.
Oh, it was terrifying. And my mother, she was gone for the day. She was visiting my uncle. I'm a 16-year-old sophomore, house to himself, so I'm just living it up. I think it's the weekend, and I remember it was a beautiful day out, so I just kind of opened the blinds.
Yeah,
and I was in some cut up blue jeans, and I was going to cat nap in my. I had a bunk bed, but the bottom was a futon that folds into a couch. So I had it down as a bed, and I sat there and I was like, man, I'm gonna get a good nap in, and I had some cats, and I had my door shut. Well, I hear a glass. First instinct is, what did that cat knock over? I'm gonna get chewed out for.
Yeah.
So I go over to the door. I open it. Now I don't have a shirt on. Like I said, and I'm not lying when I say pitch black smoke, which you have seen. I'm sure you understand. I don't know why I said it like that. So pitch black smoke, and I realized the only real cognitive thing I realized is I'm not going that way. There's no way. I can't see through it. I'm like, getting low ain't going to get me through there because I had to hustle through the house. So I turn around, and this all happens in a matter of 5 seconds. Yeah. I turn around. I leave the door open because I'm actually worried about my cat. That was probably my ignorance. But I see my cell phone, and I'm like, probably going to need that. And I grab it, and I have two windows. I have a small one, and I have one that's on the other side of the bed.
Yeah.
And I go, you know what? I'm like, I don't really want to go out this window, but I can jump over the bed, and if something happens, at least I can cushion my head on the bed or something like that.
Right.
So I take off in a 3-step sprint and literally barefoot jump over my bed, drop kick the window out. There's a little fountain outside, knocked over whatever the statue thing was on it. My back lands on the windowsill, which although it sounds bad, pure adrenaline.
Oh,
so I'm not feeling any of it, and I come out and I just rush. My neighbor comes running across the street, and he's like, "Hey, is there anybody else in there?" And his son Noah was in high school with me, and he's out there like, "What in the world?" I no longer got off that porch and barely turned around, and that black smoke is just pouring out of my room. And you think, well, that all happens in 5 seconds, and it's like, that's how quick. If I would have been 10 seconds shorter, I have lung damage or I might die.
Yeah.
And it's so that to me was so terrifying. And I find out, of course, later on it's an electrical fire. It was an older house.
Right.
I think something happened with the ceiling fan, something along those lines. And I did struggle a little bit going back into having things plugged in for a couple months, to be honest.
I'm sure. Yeah, it's common from people in a fire.
But the firefighters, even there, because this happened in Tipton, I mean, I think they got the call before I even knew what was going on.
Yeah, because you probably had neighbors that saw the smoke.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was isolated in my room. I didn't even realize how bad it was.
Yeah.
And so, and what I heard break, I think it was actually the ceiling fan came down.
Hit the floor.
So that's actually the sound I heard. So then my they were there. They checked my lungs. They did everything just like you said,
right.
like a trained EMT would do. And I was really impressed with their response time because we weren't able. There was a lot of smoke damage, and I don't think people understand that either. In a fire, that just because it's not burnt doesn't mean it's not
damaged.
Yeah. And smoke damage, especially tar, black smoke, can just ruin everything. Your clothes, your just TV.
It doesn't take much smoke either to make everything bad.
I will say that my buddy, he went and got me a shirt. He picked glass out of my back. But aside from all that, I will take a moment and just say I'm so grateful for the church at Tipton and all the members that I went to high school with. That community came together and made sure that I had a place to stay that night, that my mom was taken care of, and even to this day, I still thank them, but it's just amazing how fast they got there, because what I was able to salvage, I was so grateful for, because that's all I had left.
Yeah, and that's an amazing thing about how large this community is. Mm-hmm. It still comes together.
Mm-hmm.
We had one fire we had that pops in my head right quick is the Thanksgiving Day fire in 2015, I think.
Okay.
We had 4 houses burn that day on Thanksgiving Day. I was off. I got called in at about 11 o'clock that morning, rolled up on scene, and they were already fighting the second fire on that. Somebody was cooking Thanksgiving dinner.
Mm-hmm.
The stove caught fire. Whatever was in the stove caught fire. They ran out of the house, called 911, but they left the back door open. Now, here's the thing. Like you said, you left the bedroom door open. Mm-hmm. Close the bedroom door. It's going to give you a little bit more time. There are so many videos out there. UL is good about posting those videos with the door open and the door closed in a house fire. It gives you that many more seconds, that many more minutes to be able to process what you need to do to get out. So if you're ever in a house fire, close the door. If you open the door and you have a wall of smoke in front of you, close the door. Put a towel, put a sheet, put a blanket at the foot of the door and around the door as best you can, to give yourself time to think about how to get out. So this Thanksgiving Day fire, I get there, and Sedalia only has 10 people on duty, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So the 10 people that are on duty, we have three apparatus that respond to a fire, 2 engines and a ladder. And what we do in Sedalia is the same as what some big cities do with 25, 30 or more people, on a first alarm. We're a 1 alarm, and our second alarm is an all call, and then we're starting to call the county for help. Just so happens that day we had to do an all call. We called the county in for help. And we had to get people to help us out. I mean, it was an amazing thing. This community came together. The American Legion, it wasn't the VFW. Yeah, it was the American Legion. They were having a dinner that day. They had some leftover food. They brought it on scene for us.
Wow.
To feed us. There were people that day, what can I do to help? Bringing us coffee, bringing us water. This community is an amazing community here. And I get a little emotional at times when I start talking about how happy and proud I am of Sedalia.
Well, you should be, and because we, as you've watched this podcast, I'm sure we have, the people I feel like I've brought on time and time again, that's all they have to say about it. And I don't think we should take it for granted. And when it's like hearing you talk and just hearing the emotion and hearing it all. It's one of those where it's like, we know teachers are underpaid. We know police officers are underpaid. It's like, I think I know where the next checkbox is at. I mean, when you're talking 10 people for a whole city, and it's like, I really hope that they truly appreciate it. Again,
this community does appreciate us, and we can't say thank you enough. We go out to the grocery store. We were getting groceries one day, and we got called out. We told the cashier, we said, we'll be right back when we get done with this call, and we'll come get our groceries. We get back there, and somebody in line had bought our groceries.
Oh, wow. Good.
And we didn't know who, didn't matter, but we didn't have any way to say, hey, thank you. There's a church here in town that is very awesome. They bring food to all the first responders. They bring food to the fire station. They take it to the police station. They take it to the ambulance district. They take it to Open Door. I mean, they are very generous. And I don't know where they get the food from, but I mean, it's like every couple months, here comes a load of food from this wonderful church.
The church for us, I mean, when we were recovering, they were a big part of it for us as well. I mean, they really, I believe it's First Baptist, but I don't like to say just one church because I know that the community as a whole, there was multiple that all came through and helped us. And that being said, it's like, it really does. Like, I don't think people got to see the full effect of the emotion. In the case of what I went through, I'm just going to use myself as an example.
Right.
It's one of those where you're so overwhelmed. You don't even know where to start when you lose everything. And for me, I'm just a kid. You know what I mean? I don't even know the value of anything to begin with. And that started putting it into perspective real fast.
Real quick.
And so you get alone and you're almost, you're just in tears. I mean, to be honest, you're just in tears. And whenever somebody reaches out, you're almost in shock of just how generous people can actually be for a good cause.
It humbles you really quick.
Real fast. And then it makes you wonder to yourself, like, maybe I should have been a little bit nicer. Maybe I should have been a little bit more generous. And I think, and I'm maybe testifying a little bit, but it's like, I do think God puts us through trials at times.
Oh, yeah.
To help us learn. That was the big outcome of that. And even as a teenager, maybe I didn't learn it then, but as I grew up, I did.
Oh, yeah. And here's an amazing thing, and this is something I've carried with me ever since I was a kid. I wasn't the most fortunate growing up. I always had a roof over my head, clothes on my back, and food in my belly.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't that kid that was getting the best of the best, the new Nintendo or the new game console or the brand new car when I turned 16. I've had to work for everything I got. So it's made me really humble. So I told myself as a kid that I don't want to put my kids through this. I want my kids to understand, what a hard day's work is. Mm-hmm. And I want them to know what responsibility is and what it means by being thankful for what you have. So since I've been an adult, I've become a big advocate of paying it forward. So part of my paying it forward, I became a fire inspector. So part of being a fire inspector, you do a lot of fire prevention. If you have a good fire prevention program, you don't have a lot of fires. If you don't have a very good fire prevention program, you're going to have a lot of fires. There's just a weird mix there. So I strive frequently to teach people, about fire safety, whether it be in your business or whether it be you're at home.
Well, like you said, that's actually how we met, was through the store, because you'd come in and you'd expect our fire extinguishers, make sure we're up to par, and I'm sure our boss is like, oh, is it that time of year again?
You're here again.
You're again. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like when you put into the perspective of how important it is, it's like, no, it needs to be done.
Yeah.
And just like that, even the last inspection, because we got a new fridge, you said, hey, I get it, but you got to move your fire extinguisher. Made sense. It's got to be readily available. I mean, even for this house, I've always thought, it's like, man, that might be the next big investment. Yeah. And to get a fire extinguisher just for the house. I mean, just to have something like that for a quick response is I think, underrated. I almost think that when you buy a house, like anymore, I know that we talk about fire alarms in the house. That's what they focus on.
Yeah.
I almost think that when you go buy a house, that should be something that's on the list.
That's a great practice. That is. That's a great practice,
I mean,
just like you've been in your business and somebody drove through the front window. How terrifying was that?
I'm gonna tell you, man, that
but the benefit is you and I have got to know each other.
Yeah.
So you're probably a little more comfortable when the fire guy showed up because you knew me, which is great.
Absolutely. That was a big thing. I mean, having people there and not just for myself, it was to have somebody there to tend to the lady because she was a little bit older.
Yeah.
And all it was she hit the wrong pedal.
Yeah.
Popped the hill. Luckily, nobody was actually in the area that she drove
thank goodness,
through.
Yes.
Yeah, thank goodness.
And thank goodness nobody was on the other side of that wall.
Oh,
man.
That was crazy. But you are right. When help arrives, it's funny how you can relax a little bit.
Yeah.
You calm down because it is there.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a beautiful thing. And that's kind of, and the thing about a fire truck is, it's there.
Exactly right.
I might have my cues. I think police officers are well underpaid and all. I can go on and on about the crap they probably put up with themselves, but I've never been a big advocate of unmarked cars. And that's just me. And the only reason why is because I've always said, if I need help, I need to know you're there.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I understand the purpose of them.
Right.
But I just think that was always my thing. If you need help, you need to know you're there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But so how many, this is going to get, how many people does it take to actually operate the hose? Now, do you have to be certified to hold that thing by itself?
That's a loaded question, man.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm just curious.
What size hose are you talking about? I mean, there's different sizes of hose on the truck. There's something you probably didn't know.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
So
we have 1 3/4 hand lines. We have 2.5 inch hand lines. We have 3 inch large diameter hose. We got 4 inch large diameter hose. You get the other departments, they got 5 inch large diameter hose. I mean, it just depends on what size of hose you want to deal with. Now, a 4 inch hose, you ain't gonna move it. I don't care how many people you got. When it's full of water, you think water is 8 pounds per gallon.
Oh yeah.
And a fire truck can pump, our engine can pump about 1,250 gallons a minute.
1,250 gallons a minute.
So think about this. We could fill up an Olympic size. Well, let's say Centennial Pool.
Okay.
We could probably fill Centennial Pool up in about an hour and a half, 2 hours roughly, if we had the amount of flow. So our hand lines we use are 200-foot 1 3/4 hose, and we're pumping 125 gallons a minute out of that at about 150 psi. So it takes it. You got to have some strength. You got to be in shape. It's not for
Well, I think that's something that people don't really get is how much in shape you have to be. Because we both know my buddy Matt.
You bet. Matt's a beast, man.
He's an animal, and
I
love him to death. He works hard. He's got a great family, and it's just one of them where it's just like I look at him sometimes, and I'm just like, man, I wonder, like if he is the standard, or it's like where's it at?
There's really no standard. That 1 3/4, the standard is 2 on, one on the nozzle, and one holding the pressure.
Gotcha.
Can one person handle it? Yeah, but you're going to be tired. It's going to wear you out. You're going to be dead tired when you're done messing with that. 2 is good. So we work on a scenario, 2 in, 2 out. 2 guys in the house, 2 guys on the outside, ready to go in case something happens to those 2 guys.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we work off of. Independent. If there's a captain in with them, it's a 3-3. 3 in, 3 out. You always have the same amount of people ready on the outside as there are on the inside.
Now I'm on this question. I don't want to go into anything sad.
Yeah.
So you can use your judgment. We all know that fires can cause harm and death.
Oh yeah.
But in your situation, or at the department, now the rescuing aspect.
Right.
Okay. That it's terrifying to me. I've done some crazy stuff, and I've been in war and all that. But the fact that you're going to run into a burning building. Now I know the training probably takes over, but how does that mentally? How do you mentally prepare for that? Or when you're in there, what's it really like? Because I know Hollywood's full of crap.
It's probably let's say this: the closest movie from Hollywood nowadays to compare to what the fire service is, the closest, and it's not even close, but the closest movie you're going to see is probably Ladder 49. That's probably going to be closest to what happens in the fire service.
Okay.
But it's just a lot of that is for TV. A lot of that is
entertainment value.
Yeah, a lot of that's entertainment value. But the training, that's why we train so much. We train not to get it wrong. We don't train until we get it perfect. We train until we can't get it wrong. That's why we train so much. That's why, simple as putting the turnout gear on. You have to qualify to put that gear on. And that's all the way from putting the boots on to getting that air pack locked into air.
Now, do you have an extra, like, let's say you're doing a rescue and you come across poor John, he's on the ground. and you're aware, it's like, I've been kind of breathing in smoke and I need oxygen. Do you have a spare mask, or is it just one that you can just put on them, or is there anything that?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So we have our SCBA is a self-contained breathing apparatus.
Okay.
Fancy. So real similar to scuba divers.
Okay.
It's an identical apparatus, except ours doesn't go underwater. It's not meant for the pressures underwater, but it's identical, used same way.
So you just put it over their head?
It's a full face mask, and you wouldn't use it. What you would use would be an oxygen mask like you would get at the hospital.
Okay.
That's what we would give you.
Okay.
Each firefighter has their own mask, so that mask is fit for that person.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's what I would receive if you came in, you saw me, and I was like, you're aware, hey, you need oxygen. You're just going to put it right on my mouth.
Oh no! The first thing I'm going to do, if you're in a house fire, I'm not taking any of my gear off. I've got 80 pounds of gear on when I come rolling in your house without any tools. I got my tools. I see you laying on the floor. First thing we're going to do is we're going to pick you up and get you out of that situation.
Just remove from the situation.
Remove you from the situation. We'll put you down, and if we have enough people, the guys on the outside, they'll start working on you.
Mm-hmm.
So an ambulance crew, a lot of times ambulance crews come to all the fire scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times if we find somebody fast enough, we'll put you down outside, and we may work on you for a minute, and then the ambulance crew will take over, or the ambulance crew is already there and ready to go. So it just depends on where they're at and where they're laying. So first things first, we take you out of the bad situation. Okay, then we start assessing you and giving you oxygen or doing CPR or checking your vitals out and making sure you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that point, when we know you're stable, either you get transported to the hospital or you fly out on a helicopter or whatever. You leave the scene and you go get taken care of medically. And then the firefighters go back in the fire and start fighting fire. Now, to the emotional side of it,
mm-hmm.
We're not robots. We're human beings. We have families. We have kids. We have brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, just like everybody else. So I want people to understand the fires, the calls, the injured people, they affect us just like they do everybody else. And that's where people get the disconnect. I had a call here, it's been some years ago, pulled a kid out of a house. It messed me up for a while. My son and daughter were not much older than this kid that I pulled out of the house. I thought I saved him. He made it in the hospital a few days and he passed away. That messed me up for quite a while, and it's not the things that really bother me are the kids, because they don't have a choice of where they're at or what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're a teenager, you're still living in mom and dad's house. You're going by mom and dad's rules. You still don't make all of the choices that an adult makes.
Yeah.
Now, do adults bother me? Yeah, it bothers me to see somebody pass.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to deal with it? No, I don't want to deal with it. But we still show the respect to that person or that loved one of somebody else, because we look at it like it's one of ours. So yes, it affects us. Now, how do we get beyond that? We have debriefing meetings after a fire. If it's worse than that, you talk to your command staff and see if you can get some help.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. Don't be scared to step up and say, "Hey, I need some help." The days of, "Oh, I'm a man, just get over it." That doesn't happen anymore. Man, you gotta work those issues out.
Well, that was something I was going to go to. But before I go to that, kudos to you for bringing it to the front of the conversation.
Yeah.
It's good to hear that. I know a lot of people, we get a little touchy when we want to talk about stuff like that, but it needs to be said, like you said, because you might even have a member of your team right now that, like, he hears this and he goes, you know what, it's time. It's very important that people understand that you deal with trauma, not just fire, just every aspect, and you continue to do your job after the fact, because maybe the next one you are saving somebody.
Yeah.
And on the majority, I'm sure you are. I'm just saying, in general, It's like you always have to think about the next.
There's always that next call.
Yeah.
And that's something else. People don't realize that, firefighters kind of stand around and we joke a lot and we hang out. It seems like we're hanging out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But the second that you put your stuff on that fire truck and you are putting yourself in service is the minute your stress level goes from 0 through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if you're running a call or not, because that alarm can go off any time of day in that 24 hours. So your stress level is already high, so you're already on the edge.
It sounds like being overseas all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
That's what it sounds like.
That's why we work the 24-hour shifts. So guys do get mental exhaustion is a lot worse than physical exhaustion.
So I know that when we go out on a mission, we do some wild things. I mean, like you say, we might see some crazy stuff here or there, and we get back. We have our demission brief, and they'd always tell us, because basically the way it worked for us, we had 2 squads, maybe 3, depending on the situation. And if you went out on a mission, it's like, okay, when you got back, it was your cool-off time. And then the other 2, one of those 2 had to be ready. Because one stayed on the base, one has to be ready to go at any given point. But when we got back, they'd always be like, all right, everything went smooth. We might have got shot at. I've had bullets crack over my head and stuff. And you think to yourself, like, I'm fine, I'm good. And then they'll be like, go work out. Go, even though it's a rugged workout place. But you're like, all right, I'll go lift some rocks, whatever. And then when you start to do all that, you actually realize how tense you are.
Yeah.
How wound up you actually were. And you're like, oh, that's why they wanted me to come do this. So is that another part of it for you all? Do you guys just
the working out part,
or afterwards, or something like that to de-stress a little bit?
And that's an amazing thing. I'm glad you brought that up because working out. I work out 3 or 4 days a week, sometimes more.
Oh yeah, I see you there.
Putting
up some numbers.
Yeah, trying to keep up with them young kids. Try to keep up with them kids at work as well as the ones in the gym. But yeah, it's amazing how doing a physical activity like lifting weights, doing yoga. I mean, people don't think yoga is that hard to do. Dude, let me tell you, you don't even have to put yoga pants on. You just get out there in that class. That yoga is some serious stuff.
Nikki Freeman, she was on this podcast, I think episode 4, and she was a hot yoga instructor. I think she still dabbles. And the first time I went to a class
that's
like
a serious
that,
workout, dude. I haven't done it yet. I've seen it, and I want to try it.
But I mean, you think to yourself, oh, it's just stretching and stuff. Oh, it's more than that. But when you're done, ooh, you feel great.
It feels amazing. After a good workout, you know what I'm talking about. After a good workout, you hit good numbers, man. And you may not do a whole lot in that workout, but you're hitting good numbers and you're hitting good reps, and you're done, and you're like, man, that felt good. That's why I like doing it in the morning, because once I get done with that workout, I'm like, dang, I'm charged up for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And, by the time I get home, have dinner with the wife, do a little de-stress after work there, and we just kind of hang out, I'm ready to go to bed 8:30, 9 o'clock.
10 o'clock? What's that?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen 10 o'clock in a long time. But yeah, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm right back up and ready to go again.
Let me ask you on, so this one it's probably different. I don't know, but I am curious.
Yeah.
So helicopter drops, or plane drops,
right?
Like flybys and stuff. Have you ever participated or had training in that, or just anything along those lines? I'm just curious because I don't even know. I know nothing about that. And I know that Sedalia, in the sense of we're probably not qualified unless it was a massive one. But do we have anything in place for that?
Like for the wildland fire stuff?
Yeah,
like
or
those guys?
Yeah, or something. If something was to happen.
Those guys are serious. They're like your special forces.
Okay.
Those guys are your top notch, top rated. Those guys are the badass of the badasses.
Okay.
And those are guys are pretty elite. You jump out of a perfectly good airplane to
but not to a fire. Yeah, I know.
You jump out of a perfectly good airplane, land on the ground, and do a 2-mile hump just to go fight fire with a rake or a chainsaw or an axe. Yeah, that's not my world. Those are some elite dudes. They're,
Well, I always wondered how much the planes carry, if water when they do those pass.
Oh my God, I don't have any idea what kind of water they carry.
Yeah,
it's an amazing amount of water.
Oh, I'm sure.
The planes, the helicopters, all those guys, and those guys are some daredevil flyers. I mean, you figure those plane engines have to have fresh air, and they're flying as close as they do to them fires, sucking in that smoke. I mean, the motor's bogging down. You heard a motor when it's not getting enough air on a car. Same way on an airplane. Those guys are some awesome dudes. I mean, they're no slouches. I mean, granted, being a firefighter is a tough job, but those wildland guys, I don't fight fire without water. Honest to God, those guys do it with a rake. I ain't kidding you. There's some studs.
Yeah, and I'm sure they learn over time just different ways to manipulate.
Yeah, it's all a technique. It's stuff that you learn throughout the fire. It's wildland fire. You do what's called back burns. So you burn the live fuel. You burn the unburnt fuel, basically. Mm-hmm. So when the fire burns up to that spot, it goes out.
That's all it can
There's
have.
nothing else left to burn.
Okay.
So that's why it takes so long to put those out.
Mm-hmm. Because you're literally you're tilling up a line.
Right. Basically all you're doing. And then you're chasing. You're playing chase.
Mm-hmm.
That's
why because it could be going one direction and it's like
the wind changes, and it gets so big it starts making its own weather. That's crazy. Those guys are some serious dudes. It's an amazing thing. So I'll stay in my structure side. And
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
It's we've already been talking for 51 minutes.
Holy cow.
Insane.
That's awesome.
It's been fast.
I feel like we just got here.
I know. So backdraft. We've heard this term. There's a movie.
Right.
Can you explain that?
It's a true term. The movie has
maybe exaggerates
it. I'm not sure the theory of a backdraft. Something I can explain it to you. What happens is, say here in this room, everything in this room, you're full of smoke. It's heated. The fire is burned as much as it can. Okay.
Yep.
You open the door. You've done nothing but introduce oxygen to this fire.
Yeah.
So you're letting it breathe. It'll back build, and then everything in the room will catch fire, and the fire will shoot out the opening towards the fresh air. That's similar to a backdraft.
because it's basically wanting to eat.
Right. That's
it's looking for fresh air.
It's a living, breathing animal. And, every minute a fire grows 100 times.
So it just sounds like it's like the way I would put it in my head, and it's goofy, but it's like I can imagine being underwater needing oxygen, and then what happens? You're close, so do you just come out of the water nice and slow, or do you pop out?
Exactly, that's exactly right.
It just comes out the door.
That's what a backdraft is.
Yeah.
Now, everybody's heard of a rollover.
Okay, explain. Explain.
A rollover, that's a neat phenomenon, too. We just did some training on that, kind of talking to the guys. We do live fire training, so the rollover was what we just worked on this last time. So rollover is if say you got a fire going in a trash can, the fire builds up the wall, and it starts doing what's called a clean burn, so it doesn't have a lot of smoke in it.
Okay.
So as it works up the wall, it starts coming across the ceiling. We may be sitting in the middle of the room putting water on that fire. Well, then it's building so big because it has enough fuel, it has enough oxygen, so it's building and it's coming down over across the top of you on the ceiling. So it's growing faster than you can put water on it, and the rollover will come down on top of you. So
it's a wave.
It's similar to that. Yeah, similar to that. And it's devastating when it hurts somebody.
So what's the procedure? You just start. Do you have to actually go to the ceiling?
Well, we have a technique. We use a multi-stream nozzle, so to shoot a straight stream as well as a fog stream. So in that case, if you start seeing that, you open it up to a complete fog, and you put a water wall between you and the fire.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes that'll help slow it down, but it'll give you enough time to back out of that room so you can continue putting the fire out.
And this is another reason why you have, I guess, like, just how novice I am. You know, you go, oh, well, we have 9 connections to the truck. Well, this is why. You might have to fight this fire at multiple angles.
Yeah.
At one spot.
I mean, we had the big church fire. Everybody knows about that one in 2017 down on 4th and Osage. Mm-hmm. We have what's called master streams, and that pumps a lot of water at one time, 1,000 gallons a minute or more. So we had a master stream on the ground. We had the ladder truck that was up with another master stream. We had 3 hand lines. We had 5 or 6 different hoses coming off this one truck. You know, so we were pumping a lot of water. So we were trying to make sure that we had plenty of water covering the structures around us. So it can be interesting.
Well, as we begin to wrap up here, my last question that I'm going to kind of throw out here, because goodness knows I could ask a million. If Taylor's here, he could ask a million. And I know you touched on it just a little bit.
Right.
You know, you said close the door, put something at the bottom, put something, you know. If you're trapped in a fire, or if you're in a fire situation, give me your rundown. Tell me what you tell me to keep myself as safe as possible.
So the first thing I'm going to tell you is make sure you know at least 2 ways out of that room or out of that building. Okay. You know, every room, know at least 2 ways out.
Yeah. Well, it is required for a house. If it is a room, to have a window, correct?
Correct.
And that is part of the reason why.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's all because of fire code. It's not. It's fire code and building code intertwined. So, and the reason we have codes is because something went wrong. Somebody got hurt. So we had to make up rules saying we can't do that anymore. First thing is, if you're in a house, learn the 2 ways out. It doesn't matter where you're at. I don't care if you're in a restaurant. Look at where all the exits are. Pay attention to where you're at. Be aware of where you're at. Situation awareness. That's something they teach you in the military every day.
Attention to detail.
Yes. The next thing is, if you are in that house, you know, make sure you got a flashlight. I don't care what time of day it is. It's going to be hard to see.
I have one in my nightstand.
Yeah, have one in your nightstand. Have one in the kitchen. I have flashlights all over the house, and my wife's like, "Why do we got so many flashlights?" In case there's an emergency.
Yep.
You know, it's good for a tornado. It's good for a fire. It's good for, you know, when you lose power. You know. Mm-hmm. After that, get low. Stay low. If you can't get out of the house, and let's say you're on a second story, and you can't jump out the window, you know, you're going to hear those fire trucks coming. You know, put that blanket or that towel at that door to give you a little bit more time.
And probably make yourself known.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
I mean, I would assume that's part of it, too.
When you hear those trucks come up, or you hear them trucks coming, throw something out that window. You know, break that window. I don't care what it is. Throw a football out the window. You know, don't drop kick it. And
man,
that's fear and adrenaline kicking in.
Yeah.
But, you know, just throw something out the window, whether it be, you know, your lamp, your clock, your phone. No matter what it is. Get the
attention.
Get somebody's attention that they know, hey, you're right there.
Well, just like you were, I mean, listening to you, it's like the first thing I thought, you're like, well, understand your exits of that. And just in my head, I'm like, yeah, every parent that heard that should be teaching their kids how to make sure they know how to open them windows.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like, it sounds goofy, but.
And that's another thing. When I do the fire prevention talks, that's what we talk about. What happens if your clothes catch fire? Kids tell me, well, I'm going to take them off. No, you're not. I want you to stop, drop, and roll.
Stop, drop, and roll. There it is. They've been waiting the whole episode
for
it.
Stop, drop, and roll.
Stop, drop, and roll.
And I don't, you know, and I don't care if you're 5 years old or 50 years old. Your clothes catch fire, man. Stop, drop, and roll. Quit watching these YouTube videos of these guys running across the yard, and that's dumb. You're gonna get yourself hurt.
Get rid of the oxygen.
Oh yeah, exactly. All you're doing is feeding that fire with air. You know, but yeah, and situation awareness is a big thing. You know, you go to bed at night. My wife goes, well, I didn't do your walk around. We've been married almost 30 years. I've been doing the same walk around for 30 years. I check to make sure the doors are closed and locked, make sure the garage door is down, and I just kind of do a quick walk through the house to make sure everything's okay.
I'm the world's worst.
Yeah.
Because I meal prep here and there.
Yeah.
And if I turn that oven on, I swear to you, I know I turned it off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? but I'll be in bed, and right when I get comfy, I turn the oven off. And I have to go look. I have to go look.
Get up and go look.
But, you know, I can't express to you just how grateful I am that you came on.
Yeah.
I hope everybody really gains some knowledge from this. I know I have.
Yeah.
I hope they have the appreciation for you all.
We know the appreciation is there. We have a lot of support from this community, and we really appreciate it.
Well, even today at work, I'm telling you, I saw a truck, lights on, going by, and I thought to myself, how ironic, because I knew you were coming here today. And, again, man, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. Thank you for your service.
You having me on, man.
And thank you for everybody else at your team, or your whole team, everybody at the fire departments. We just want to give them a big thank you from Smooth Talk. Just thank you all so much. We're going to end this episode like we always do. We're just going to point at the camera. All right. See y'all later.
See you guys.
Who are you?